Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I hope everyone is well. Inshallah, we are back with a update live on the whole UFO Jinn topic. We haven't done one of these in a while. It's been probably close to a year. I think we did one earlier this year, 2024. And it's almost, I guess, a good time now to do one because it's end of 2024. And just to sort of share some thoughts, look at some current events that have been going on in the whole, you know, in this sphere, if you like, of UFOs and UAPs and this whole sort of craze online that's been taking place over the past couple of years. So, Assalamu alaikum, Farouk, first and foremost. How are you, bro?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm all good, Akhi, and yourself?
Alhamdulillah, bro. Good. As you can see from my setting, I didn't get a chance to get into the office. But mashallah, at least one of us is well organized. So I guess that will do,
Actually,
inshallah.
I wouldn't say that. So just to preempt everything, brothers and sisters, this was meant to be a little bit more organized from my end. But I may have improved some things where I've improved in some places, I've lost in others. But that's sometimes when you're pulling the rope, that's what happens, man. You know, you pull some from one end and you lose some in another.
Alhamdulillah, bro. Alhamdulillah. So let's get into it, bro. There's been some very interesting things that have happened over the past year. Some would say it's been very quiet, as you know, they would say as expected. You know, there's always this buzz around this topic every decade or so, or a couple of years, and then it dies down. Obviously, from our perspective, we're approaching this topic from a predominantly religious perspective, from an Islamic perspective, to highlight to people that look, there are some interesting things going on here, that Islam has something, you know, that Islam could speak on. And we'll obviously cover our narrative again and discuss that as we progress through this live. But I think it'll be a good thing to start off with talking about some of the updates and recent things that have happened. And I think one of the most recent things, maybe we start in that order. There's been a bit of a frenzy on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, with the UK. So UK has been quite quiet, generally speaking, from a governmental perspective, or the perspective of the government, and also generally, you know, much of the noise has been made internationally, is in particular in America. So it's good to see, I guess, in some ways, that the UK has come alive as far as this topic is concerned over the past couple of weeks. All of these drone incursions that have been taking place. Just fill us in on that and let us know your thoughts in regards to that, bro, because a lot of people have been talking about that online.
For sure, my brother. Jazakallah khair, and congratulations to you, brother, mashallah. I've got to say this before we go into the more modern stuff. Your Jinn hypothesis article has gone everywhere, subhanallah. People have lifted from it and benefited from it, and that's exactly what IREP's been set out to do. And so we're really blessed, alhamdulillah, with your efforts, Akhi, in that regard. So may Allah keep it going for you, my bro. May Allah increase you in all good as well, alhamdulillah. The other thing I want to quickly mention that's really brand new news was the great victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala over the last week that's been given to the ummah. Alhamdulillah, some of the despots that have been tyrannically ruling over some areas of the Middle East have been removed, and we hope that this continues, these futahat, these openings can carry on, inshallah, throughout the Middle East, and we have some peace and tranquility brought to that region that it so needs after decades, even a century plus of war, famine, and difficulty for those people. So I just want to quickly say thank you to Allah for that, and to thanks to the brothers out there who are doing their part to rid the world of evil and get rid of these people who hold unjustly and harm and tyrannically destroy people's lives and families. Just seeing some of the scenes of people returning to their homes and having their family finally freed, it's an amazing feeling to see that, alhamdulillah. And this is where we are here in the world. It's a strange time to be alive. Things we never thought possible are happening now, subhanallah. And the UAP/UFO topic is no exception to that, because things have happened over the last year that we didn't ever really expect. We had that congressional hearing over a year ago with David Grush, well over a year ago. In fact, it was like last June or whatever, or last July, with David Grush. But we had a repeat event, only a few weeks back with Luis Elizondo and some of the stuff that he had to talk about. We'll get into that after, but getting straight to it, the UK finally on the map, finally having some news to bring to the table, so to speak, on this topic. I think there's a lot to unpack on the drone incursions, bro. Like, a ripple throughout the UK, Europe, and indeed in America, because they're described as drones, but what people are seeing and what people are saying and what people are filming don't quite match with what we understand drones are. So most people, actually, when you say drone, what do you think of?
Just the DJI
Yeah,
and I think whatever else other ones models are out there, little machines that fly around filming stuff.
exactly. Just a
Yeah.
little tiny noisy thing that buzzes around, right? And we in the UK particularly, as well as Europe and in the West in general, we would expect that something like a pesky little bug, because that's the equivalent, it's like a tiny little bug compared to the type of technology we've been led to believe that we have. These little things are flying around very sensitive sites. This Milden Hall and Lake and Heath, I'm very familiar with them. And these two sites in particular are very difficult to get access to. You need a lot of clearances, and you can wait for half an hour to get clearance just to make a delivery onto those sites. These places are incredibly secure, and for good reason. These house equipment and technology that is used to defend the UK from whatever they deem as a threat, right? So to have tiny little, what they've described as drones buzzing around, and in one particular video, actually, as Ross Coulthard rightfully said, quite clearly evading, our aircrafts that are going to intercept with them. This shows a great lack of understanding of what technology exists out there, particularly here in the UK. And it also shows a lack of preparedness for our governments who claim to be, almost like the vicegerents of the earth, the people who are here to maintain, peace and justice on this planet. America and Britain are wildly unprepared for what has been described as drones. Now, the reason it's caused such a ripple, actually, is because what they've called them drones, and they're evading and avoiding any sort of capture. There's been rumors that one was shot down. Nobody knows. They've said they haven't blamed anyone yet. They haven't said it's Russia. They haven't said it's China. There's rumors going around to who these things belong to. But if you look at the UFO community, it's quite obvious that many of the people who are, up to date with the UAP topic, they describe some of these as UAP, as UFO. That's why they're acting so anomalously, and that's why the UK don't have a response for it. And they sent their elite squadron over there to deal with this. This caused a huge problem. And why is this significant to us? What does it matter to a Muslim if there's a drone buzzing a base in the UK? It leads to questions about what we think our government is capable of, what we think our military capabilities are. And we see there's huge gaps. These type of gaps, create worry, create, what's the right word? A lack of trust and a lack of confidence in what we're led to believe is our security. Whether we like it or not, living here in the UK, we are British Muslims, and we are, and have been, and there's clear discussions actually going on for the last few months, very close to a war with Russia, who has capabilities that have been displayed. They've got hypersonic weapons that can deliver payloads instantly, almost. Like it takes a few minutes, and you can't really defend from these type of weaponry. And we have little drone incursions that can't be stopped, that can't be controlled. This leads to many questions. What are these drones? Where do they come from? Who do they belong to? And why do they seemingly, even though they're drones, behave in such a strange way that doesn't match what we understand drones are? Because like you said, little flying device, there's a few little lights on it and buzzes around and makes video recording. But these things aren't just flying around. They're behaving strangely, and it's caused a huge issue. So, yeah, I haven't, I don't want to go outright and say that these are exotic technologies belonging to, you know, another creature that inhabits this earth. But I will say that there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and this is good, actually, because it brings to attention the weaknesses of the Americans and the British, and you know, their confidence of being so powerful and so strong is actually is a facade, and it's pretend, and really in reality they can't even defend themselves from what they describe as drones.
Mika, so you and Mika has asked, when can we ask questions? You can ask questions as we go along. What we'll try to do, Farouk, is as soon as a question pops up, I may stop you, Ron. We'll try to engage the questions, because normally what ends up happening is when we get to the end, you know, all the questions have been asked and we normally don't end up answering any questions. So if you guys have any questions, please just drop them in, and I'll keep an eye back end, and I'll definitely pop them up as soon as they come up, and we'll address them pretty much straight away. So you can ask your questions as we go along. Yeah, man, the drones thing has been an interesting one, right? So I've heard, you know, the whole spectrum. There's views like from one end, which is that, you know, with Ross Colha himself mentioned this in one of his recent News Nation podcasts, that you know there's this idea amongst some of the people in the UFO community that these are you know, again, UAP that have shape-shifting abilities and are appearing or taking on the form of aircraft that we recognize. So they're mimicking, or they are shape-shifting into these forms that we recognize to disguise themselves. So you've gone from that end of the spectrum all the way to, okay, these are just foreign, you know, drones from foreign countries that are buzzing overhead. It's hard to make out right now. It's really hard to make out right now as to what's exactly going on. But like you mentioned, there's some. It's an interesting one to keep an eye on. And there was also that Manchester airport, you know, event where there were some images and videos that came out which were quite interesting. Any thoughts on those, bro?
Yeah, definitely. This is where I wanted to get to next, because that's hasn't been addressed. Nobody's come out and discussed it, and it's quite obvious that a spherical bluish tinted metallic type object was filmed by pilots, and I've been to that airport many times, Akhi, and it's not a big airport, and at that particular area where they are, it's where the aeroplanes land and they come down. So this is airside, this is in a secure area, Akhi. This is where this is aviation security, this is public security. These are areas which you can't have anything just flying around. Why? You have passenger aircraft, passenger jets flying in and out of Manchester, as well as cargo, but it's not a military site. This is, you know, passengers. These are people going on their holidays. These are people, you know, traveling. Maybe they're popping down to Spain, or they're going, you know, Dubai, wherever they're flying out to. You can't have willy-nilly things flying around these airports. You have a pilot who went quiet. He came out. He had a pseudonym. He shared the videos of what he captured from his cockpit in the aircraft, and then he deleted everything. And luckily, you know, blessedly, should we say, people kept these videos, people kept the pictures. And what it is this metallic blue orb. Some describe it about the size of a small car, maybe like a Corsa or something, that flies down from its filmed initially up in the sky, and then it comes down to a few feet off the ground of the airport. Allegedly, the story goes, the airport personnel sent out a vehicle to intercede this thing, to try and see what it is and find out what it was. And as they approached, it took off instantaneously up through the sky, behaving in a way that you wouldn't expect a drone to behave. Doesn't look like a drone. It's circular in nature. I'm not saying it's impossible to make a ball-shaped drone, but this thing was traveling far too fast. The type of it didn't, as far as we're aware, it didn't make any noise. It obviously was evading any sort of radar operation, because they didn't have it on the radar. There's been no mention of any radar data. If there was, they would have closed the airport down and we would have known all about it, kind of like the Gatwick drone incident a couple of years ago in Christmas. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
So the Gatwick drone was a classic example of what they do when drone activity is found around an airport. And there's a lot of questions still to be answered on the Gatwick one, but that's another story, bruv.
Yeah. I mean, just generally, the UK has been very quiet, right? I mean, from the very get-go, since 2017, the UK has just been very quiet as far as speaking about this or addressing this topic. And even now, with all of these, drone incursions taking place, they still are very quiet and they've not said anything. Literally, and that's what's suspect about this whole thing. I mean, if it was drones from, of another country flying over, I mean, they would have definitely shot them down. They've got the technology to do that.
Do you think the news would have left it alone if Russia flew a drone over a
No, of course not.
British airport?
So it's that is a bit weird, but yeah, man, it's been a weird one. But I and also, just to be a bit more objective, and I think you'd agree that there is, if you look at this from a sort of sociological or a psychological perspective, and even historically, mass hysteria can easily set in when it comes to things like this. And what I mean by that is, when people start to witness something or something unusual, or any event, even a natural event, that's out of the norm, people sometimes pick up on that, and that sort of, it spreads like a virus, where people start to see things or interpret things in a way that in a way that they normally wouldn't, and they start seeing things which aren't actually there. So this hysteria can build up as well, and I think there is an element of that going on as well. And then on top of that, you got this whole, we live in an AI world, bro, where AI is generating stuff that, and there's a lot of fake videos online as well. I mean, let's be honest, a lot of AI generated videos, so it's very hard to distinguish between these things. But nevertheless, there is definitely something going on, and something that is quite strange, the way it's being treated.
I would add further to that, Afi. There's a hadith, and it always comes in my mind, where the Prophet ﷺ said towards the end of times, trust would be lost. And when trust is lost, wait for the hour. And that term, trust being lost, you could imagine that you could apply that to, say, the family, when, families stop trusting one another, or when the brotherhood starts breaking down and Muslim brothers don't trust one another anymore. But what we're seeing in our modern times, like, you can't even trust videos anymore. Nobody trusts the government anymore. And this is how these type of incidents, as you mentioned, where, hysteria can set in, it's because things aren't being addressed. You have a lot of questions about these drones. I have a lot of questions, and so do many people in the public, and they want to know what's going on. But because of quote unquote national security, they don't tell us anything. And they don't tell us anything, leading us to doubt what they're hiding from us. And this allows these conspiracies to build and to form. And at the same time, we as Muslims, we have a belief, right? And the things that we believe, we are told in the schools and in the universities that a lot of this isn't real. It's just a belief, and it's not a reality. But we have some events like the drones and like the UAP and the UFO phenomena that has been, slowly building momentum, especially, after the last, especially after Lou Elizondo's book going, as a bestseller, and him literally blowing the whistle on the whole thing. There is a huge doubt and mistrust about the information we get pertaining to anomalous aerial phenomena, and what comes out of the sea as well. These all domain, or these multi-medium craft that can travel through space, through the sea, through the sky, and these things are now being seen, or allegedly being seen around these. It's going to cause hysteria, actually, because there's rumors that it's aliens, right, or Jinn, or whatever you want to call them. Yep. And then you're not hearing anything from the government, and they're not addressing it. This allows these things to fester, and this is where a lot of hysteria and craziness comes out. People don't trust because the government don't address it, and the government don't address it because they don't want the implications of what they're addressing, or for national security reasons. Yet they'll share anything they want about what Russia's doing in Ukraine. There's no national security there. But when it comes to sensitive sites in the UK or in the US, all of a sudden it's a national security reason that we can't tell you about what we're experiencing here. And that all builds down to distrust. And when there's no trust, Akhi, even if they come out and tell us it's XYZ now, they've left it too long. And what needs to happen, and what's happening, it seems anyway, is that people are forming their own opinions, and they're pushing the government in America. And I think it's going to start to build momentum here in the UK to push to find out what these things are.
100%,
we need answers from the government. And we have already presented our case very strongly on your channel, Akhi. about what we think these things are, how they match almost identically in many places with the jinn phenomena that we know about, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed about them, what our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has described about them, and what the scholars have said about them. And if what we have is a jinn phenomena occurring, we need to ask the questions why. As society has sort of ran away from the traditional religious moral background to a, as you know better than me, Akhi, a materialistic, atheistic understanding, and people have adopted habits and behaviors that are immoral. As this has grown, we've seen more and more and more of these phenomena occurring. One has to ask the question that as we head away from a religious, godly society to an ungodly, irreligious society, is it opening the door and allowing more of these events to occur? As people don't seek refuge in the shaitan anymore, and the Christians don't attend the church, and people don't believe in God, they're becoming more devilish in their nature, and therefore we're having more of these events occurring. I don't know, but there seems to be some correlation between the way the society is heading and the activity on an increase. I think it's
100%.
kind of telling that the more devilish we become as a human being, the more the devils seem to be showing themselves.
100%.
Of course, with that,
there's so many directions we could take this. And just before we continue, someone asked, "Can I join the stream live to ask a question?" Yes, you can. I've just shared the StreamYard link on the comment section, guys. So anyone that wants to jump on and ask a question, you're more than welcome to. Or you can write your question in the comment section, and we'll address it as we go along. So yeah, Farouk, man, I think that's one of the most, what really fascinated me and still fascinates me about this whole topic and what's going on is, just a shift in society, in the way people think in the world that we live in today, and how they're interpreting this phenomenon, and how, beings of old, that religions and cultures have spoken about for centuries, are making a comeback, and how they're being interpreted today in this sort of techno-secular age. I think that's fascinating, bro. And I think you're quite right, bro. It is an important question, that why are these things happening now? And just to add to what you said, I think number one, obviously, initially after the Enlightenment, when people turned away from God and decided to become fully secular and fully materialistic, I don't think these things went away. They were always there, but because their mindset was different now, their focus was on the material, and that was their worldview of materialism, and that's the way they saw reality. Then that was how they understood everything. So even if they would see things, they'll either just dismiss it as an illusion, or just, them mistakenly identifying something or seeing something, or ignore it completely, or interpret it in a way that could fit into that materialist model. And I think that's what's happened. I mean, if you look at the past several decades, up until obviously recently, the past maybe since 2017, modernity has always looked at these topics and treated them with ridicule. It's something, you're a kook, you're a crackhead, you're a crackpot if you believe in these things, you're interested in these things, you are engaging in these things, you're crazy. These things don't exist. The supernatural doesn't exist. But over the past maybe decade or so, obviously, and you can look at this from again, from a social philosophical perspective, the shift from modernity to postmodernism, and now to this meta-modern age, you're seeing people go from a very materialistic outlook on reality, which is modernity, to a more a rejection of modernity, and therefore opening up to these new ideas and new age spirituality, and once again the belief in the supernatural, and in ideas of enchantment, as they would refer to it, bro. And now in this you're seeing it in society as well. People are more open to these things. And therefore, when they are witnessing these things, they are now open to interpreting these things, beyond that material scope. They're willing to acknowledge maybe it's something else, maybe it's something supernatural, or something beyond the normal, because now their minds are a bit more open. So I think that shift is, you see the correlation between the way these sightings are going up, the interest in this topic, how people observe these things, what they believe now, compared to what their mindset and their worldview is currently. I think that's very interesting as well. And again, yeah, you were spot on, bro. Like, even though people are opening up to spirituality and stuff like this, they still are not interested in believing in God or religion. So they don't have that base. So obviously it opens us up to these things, and then obviously we can go down the route of occultism that was especially in the modern age, Aleister Crowley and his followers, and how they may have contributed to opening up some of these things. There's a lot of directions we can go in, bro. So I don't know, anything else you want to mention on these points?
Absolutely. This takes us to sort of like the title head of this video, world religions. So I don't know if you saw it a little bit, I'm sure, right? The other day there was a News Nation podcast that is ran by Ross Coulthard, and I think Ross Coulthard is very brave because he is a well-credentialed journalist who's taken this head on and ran with it and really pushed to get the answers, and he's brought them to the forefront. He hasn't, there are some things that he's had to keep quiet, as he's quite rightfully said, but for the most part, he shares whatever he learns about a topic. And he had someone on the other day, and his name escapes me. I forget his name, but he's a PhD holder, and he's wrote a book called A New Civilization. And in this book, I think he's South American Catholic originally, but as you mentioned, he has now he's now looking at his religion and his belief through the lens of the phenomena, and he is now reinterpreting Catholicism from his own understanding and from the data that he's had access to. And he says, this is his claim, he pretty much says it right at the beginning of the video with Ross, and he says that in his understanding that the phenomena is behind all religions. So the world religions are being pushed to be reinterpreted with the framework of with the lens, should I say, excuse me, of the phenomena, and it's opening a lot of questions. And in the video title of Ross's video, I think it's something like, "Was Jesus an alien?" Now, a'udhu billah, we seek refuge in Allah from accusing, Isa alayhi salam, one of the Anbiya, one of the great messengers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as being not from the son of Adam. And this question of Adam comes up a lot. What are we? Where do we come from? What are we doing here? What's been visiting us? And who is God? They're trying to reinterpret these things, and this is exactly the intention of the shayateen. This is the intention of Iblis. They want to muddy our understanding of prophethood, of revelation, and to reinterpret it in this way. And it's ironic that as you mentioned, we've moved away from a more religious, secular type of society. Religions are now being again questioned and asked to reinterpret. Not only did they have to reinterpret their book and change and pull out verses to suit the modern society and the behaviors of modern human beings, but now they're having to question the actual reality of what their religion is talking about, and they're creating new layers of understanding around it based on the phenomena being the reason for revelation, and perhaps even being the phenomena being the prophets themselves. This is honestly like a complete stab into the heart and a tearing apart of the history of the son of Adam. That's who we are. We are the children of Adam, and they're trying to destroy and reimagine our history. And this is a trick of the shaitan, because the shaitan, he makes the son of Adam forget. And we've been around for only Allah knows how many tens of thousands of years human beings have been alive, right? Or even more than that. We don't know, but we forget. That's why we can reinterpret our history and come up with fantastic ideas like Jesus was an alien, a'udhu billah, because we forget things. And because we forget, we can be encouraged to reinterpret. And part of that forgetting is that Iblis and the shayateen, they make people forget even the most fantastic things. Look at the story of Musa alayhi salam and Yusha bin Nun when they go to meet with Khidr alayhi salam. And Yusha, they were told, Musa alayhi salam was said, you will meet him where you lose the fish at the juncture of the two seas. And subhanallah, Yusha, he saw an amazing thing. He saw the fish climb out of the basket and sort of hop its way into the water. A dead fish comes out of the basket, starts hopping, and subhanallah, he forgot it. And then when he recounts that he forgot it the next day, he says, A'udhu billah, none but the shaitan, he made me forget. Shaitan, he makes us forget fantastic things. And this is what's happening now. We're having the shaitan be involved in the interpretation of the human story. And I find it quite dangerous, Akhi, that Catholicism, I don't agree with the Catholicism. And I'm not a Catholic, but they have some traditions that are close to our hearts, especially when it comes to the prophet.
Bro,
Right?
just hold your thought, bro, on that.
Sorry,
We've got two guests, bro. I want to quickly get to them.
Yeah, sure,
We've got
sure.
Nawaz is on the live now. So Nawaz, you can unmute yourself and ask your question, bro.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers. Can you hear me?
Alaikum salam. Yes, we can.
Yes.
First of all, thank you so much, brothers, for your works. I've seen some of the lives that you guys did, and also your podcast with blogging theology as well. The presentation you gave, I think Jinn hypothesis makes a lot of sense, which I completely agree with. Also, but I was thinking recently that can we not give a different angle to this? Because I heard a story back in 1990. It was Serge Monast. I don't know if you heard of him. He came up with this absolute bizarre conspiracy. He called it Project Bluebeam. I don't know if you heard of this. So he said that there's some sort of cabal type organization, secret organization, which wants to create a one world government. So they are planning different steps to get there, slow and steady steps. And one of the steps he mentioned, Serge Munoz, back in 1990s, he said that they will create a fake alien invasion. So they'll do it slowly. So they first of all they will show some stuff in the sky, and they'll say, okay, something is coming. So slowly they will build up on this. So can we not say that? Well, I can understand the Jinn hypothesis makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of evidence out there, but can we not say that this is some sort of big conspiracy? Maybe not the reason what Serge Munoz mentioned, but maybe some different agenda that they might have. The other reason that I might think it's a conspiracy, it can be. I'm not saying I think it can be, is that he also mentioned that one other step, one of the last step was they will create some sort of godly figure, some sort of antichrist, which is very interesting because we also believe in some sort of antichrist. We believe in antichrist as well, that he will come. So what's your thought on this? Can it be a big conspiracy, some sort of agenda behind it?
Thank you, Nawaz. Thank you for the question, bro. I hope you're well, inshallah. So look, here's how I see it, and I'll give it over to Farouk to get his thoughts as well. It could be the case, if that is the case, and they say, hypothetically speaking, they wanted to do that and they are trying to actualize it. The Cabal, as far as I'm aware, have also deal with these entities and these beings. It's just natural. I mean, look at the history of such organizations or groups. They always are linked in with these beings from other realms, etc. So there could be a case where, if that's the case and they have this plan, it's not to say that they are not having the Jinn involved in making this or carrying this plan out. So it could be a case that both of these things are happening simultaneously. Or it could be the case, because like I said, it's not only what the government has been saying since 2017. This engagement or these encounters with this phenomenon that people have been having but there's a whole history. It goes all the way back. Every religion speaks about it, every culture speaks about it. People have been speaking about it over the centuries. There's so much literature on this, where people have these phenomenal experiences. They get abducted, they are visited by beings, they're terrorized by beings. So that's happening. That's been happening throughout history. Now, is it the case that that's a separate phenomenon, and what we're seeing as far as this whole UFO hype online and all of this noise is related to the Cabal and their plans? Maybe that's a possibility. Another possibility is that these two things are working together. These people that are wanting to create such an illusion to lead people to this one world order are using the Jinn. That's another possibility. So there's all these possibilities, bro. Allah knows best, but it could go hand in hand as well. Any thoughts, Farouk, on this?
Dude, you nailed it. That's exactly what I was going to say, because although you're correct, Akhi, and they're definitely, the rumor, the Project Bluebeam is old, and it has its origins even before. I forgot Sergei Monas said. There's some indication that this was considered in the 70s, and there was whispers that this was going to be the end result at the end of the day. As you mentioned, Imran, the Jinn phenomena is occurring side by side alongside Project Bluebeam. So if Project Bluebeam is real, they're able to abduct people, just like the shayateen do, even going back to the time of the Prophet, I said, even before that. So regardless whether Project Bluebeam is true or not, we interpret in the events according to Quran and Sunnah. Of course, the enemies of Allah and His Messenger, they're going to lie, they're going to make things up. But you could easily ask the same question: could Sergey Monast be part of the disinformation campaign? You know what I mean? This is the problem. We don't have any concrete information about what's going on behind the scenes. We only have rumors and whispers. We have whistleblowers. And so we have to filter that information through the Quran and Sunnah, because it's the only trustworthy information that we have. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared us through the Quran and through His Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, for our times. And it's a miracle that's going to last to the end of time. So anything that we have is as fantastic as, new technologies or advanced aliens visit. We filter any of this through the Quran and Sunnah. Whatever matches, we can say most likely this is what it is. And that's how we stay safe in this environment. If it is fake, we've lost nothing. A man who lives on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, who's Muslim, who doesn't believe cars exist, he hasn't lost anything on the Day of Judgment, right?
Yeah.
Even though they're true and they're real, but it makes no difference to him. And that's the point here,
Yeah.
What we do is we filter what we learn and what information is coming out from the whistleblowers, and we compare that to what we have in Quran and Sunnah. And we say, look, if it's true what these people are saying, it's most likely this thing here. And why is it important to say this? It's because we need to be prepared for it. The Muslim Ummah, unfortunately, today is quite fragmented, and we follow, as the Prophet said, we follow the Jews and the Christians, like a snake goes down a hole. So we have followed them in many ways, and we need to be prepared for something as strange as this happening. And we don't want to lose our brothers and sisters to this, because it could, with the wrong understanding and the wrong explanation, it could lead people to question their deen, to question whether Islam is true. And that's all we're preparing for him. We can't really say for sure, oh, Sergey, his theory is correct, and then this is all nonsense. It wouldn't make a difference to us. All we do is look at the information and say, look, if it's true, this is what we have in Islam. And it's quite amazing how much we actually have in the Quran and Sunnah to explain these things. So
100%. Yeah,
the same thing as you, Imran.
Yeah, and you know what it is? This is why I like to make that very clear distinction, and I keep mentioning this. There's what the governments, specifically speaking, the American government since 2017 has been saying, and then there's this phenomenon from a historical perspective, which is been going on, right? So don't just see this topic as, it's because a lot of people say, well, the governments have always lied. Maybe this is just one big psyop and it's just, a cover for something. It's very possible, right? You can't trust the governments. But the point is that if you look at the literature, you look at the history, that this phenomenon has been taking place for a very long time. So you have to make that demarcation and realize it's not just what the American government has been saying since 2017. This is a real phenomenon human beings have been experiencing throughout history. And this has been documented, right, in human history, cross-culturally, right? So this stuff is real. It's been going on. Yes, now the American government's making noise and academics are jumping on and all of this stuff, which is, again, interesting. And there's a couple of things I think I want to pick up on. But let's go to Tariq before we do that. Assalamu alaikum, Tariq.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, brother.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. I had a question. I have two questions. First one is, I saw your debate a long time ago in Hyde Park with an atheist. And sorry, it's a little bit off topic, so I'm sorry for that. And in my opinion, it was one of the best debates or a conversation with an atheist. And my question is, why don't you do it like more often, those kind of debates?
Okay, so Jazakallah khair, bro, for sharing your thoughts. The main reason is, bro, there's a couple of reasons. The first thing is that, bro, that type of atheism is dead now, bro. Most people are not interested in that type of, at least in the West. People have moved beyond that, bro. Now they're into this new age stuff, new age spirituality and stuff like this. Secondly, I I'm still open to doing debates wherever I feel necessary. I'm not. I rather have discussions with people now. I was very young then, and I know it can come across very, engaging and entertaining to watch. But in the grand scheme of things, bro, it's not the best form of dawah to debate someone. Yes, it's good and it's empowering for the Muslims, alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And there's loads of brothers, mashallah, doing it, which is good. But for me personally, bro, I don't think it's the best format of dawah. I think it's more beneficial to have discussions with people. But if a debate comes around which I feel is in relation to the topics I specialize in, I'll definitely do them. Like I had one about 2 years ago, 3 years ago with the guy in Manchester on the meaning of life. So that was a topic that I specifically was interested in. So I did the debate. But yeah, I'm not into debates. But if they come around and I feel they're beneficial, I would do it.
Yeah, I totally understand. Definitely, Hyde Park is not the right place to have. It's very difficult to have a convenient conversation. So I understand that. But the reason why I'm asking because you have a lot of qualities. If I compare it to other brothers, Loma Barak, who also have qualities of course to debate atheists or have a conversation with atheists. But in my opinion, I watch a lot of conversations and debates from different speakers, and in my opinion, that one was the most viewed. Yeah, on YouTube. That debate with the Hindu guy. I don't know if you know that one.
Yeah, I think I remember which one you talk. Yeah, with the atheist
With a purple
Darwinist.
shirt, you know.
Yeah, Darwinist. Yeah.
Yes. And that one was so good. It was so profound. It was so on point, you know. And it was the guy also was very calmly, and he was also very introvert, and he was starting listening to you. So it works both ways, of course. But you have a lot of qualities, and I think, in my opinion, you're. And I'm trying to exaggerate or something, but I watch a lot of videos from different speakers. In my opinion, maybe a humble advice: you can do it more often.
Yeah, like I said, brother. Firstly, Jazakallah khair, make dua for us, inshallah. And
course.
if the right opportunities come and I feel it's right, I definitely would do it, bro.
Yeah.
But like
And
I said, just to put it
yeah,
out for people as well, and like you acknowledged, it's not debates are not the best form of dawah. They may serve
yeah,
other purposes, like they may inspire Muslims, motivate them, give them confidence. Alhamdulillah, that's important as well. But from my perspective, someone that wants to give dawah, it's not the best format. But nevertheless, if it comes around and there's the right debate, I definitely would do it, bro. Jazakallah khair. Have you got any questions, bro, related to the topic we're discussing today?
yeah. The second question is: there's a Quran verse about maybe about this specific topic. It says, I'm paraphrasing right now. It's about that Allah says in the Quran, we are one of the best creations, one of the best, or the best. It's one of those. But I heard some speakers telling that maybe it's insinuating that there is more than creations outside of the universe, outside of this realm where we are living in. Is that correct, or what's your view on that?
Farouk, you want to take this one, bro?
Yeah, no doubt it's true. So it's in the Quran. I think the verse you're referring to, where that he favored us above most of his creation. So he favored mankind above most of his creation. And there's also other ayat where Allah mentions that he's, that he's created life across the heavens. So we only know about Sama' ad-Dunya in terms of a scientific understanding. What we know about is Sama' ad-Dunya. We can look up at the stars. We don't even know how far they are away. We guess based on light and based on electromagnetic and radiation and things like that. But we don't really know how far they are and what lives over there. And that's one heaven. And there's a hadith that mentions, it's a weak hadith, but this dunya, Sama' ad-Dunya, is like a ring in the desert to the next heaven. And then that is like a ring in the desert to the next heaven. So in terms of size, distance, and what Allah's created, we don't know, and it's vast. But we've been told about a few of Allah's creation, but there's many that we don't know, and Allah has preferred us over most. But as you mentioned, it doesn't state that he preferred us above all creation. But we do know one thing, that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best of creation. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he supersedes all. He is the best of Allah's creation. and Allah knows best, yeah, definitely. What that means to us, though, is that Allah is indicating to Allah's greatness and His power. And it also indicates another ayah that, we mankind, we have little knowledge. So, we don't know much about the soul, more than we did in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and our knowledge hasn't increased. And this is something which pertains to our existence, that we know is there, that we can have consciousness, and we understand that we exist, and that there's something that makes us alive, yet we know nothing about it. And that's the weakness of mankind. There's things that we don't know about, and it's okay not to know as a Muslim. We don't need to know answers to everything. Why this topic is important, and why we kind of like to talk about it, is because it's having an effect on the humans today. And this effect, if not monitored by Muslims and understood by Muslims, it could have a great negative effect. For the people who believe, it's not really going to bother them too much, but it's for the people who are in between. It's for the people who are weak in iman, da'iful iman. This could shake their faith. So what we're trying to do here is just prepare, in particular, these type of topics. But other things like other creations, it's quite clear in the Quran that there's more that we don't know about. And what do they look like? How are they? Perhaps if we're of the blessed to make it into Jannah, we get to find out. Maybe us three here on the screen now, we'll get to travel in one of these amazing crafts around the universe and see these different creatures that Allah's created. It'd be an amazing thing. Hopefully we make it, inshallah.
But inshallah, thank you for your answer. But I'm trying to understand why should some Muslims will their faith will be shaken if there is maybe more than this life. Maybe there are aliens or whatever. I don't see the link.
Okay, so Muslims are different, Akhi. Some people are knowledgeable, some people are not. Some people just do their day to day, and some people struggle just to pray. Some people are attracted to disbelief. Why? Because the ummah is weak right now. Islam is not weak. The ummah is weak. The people who follow it are weak. If you go to an area where there's good Muslims, strong Muslims, you get strong. And you'll find that, when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the greatest tragedy to affect this ummah is when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam died. Why? Sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he passed away, is because he used to sort out any of the fitna between the people. Once he passed away, it was a declension from there. We went down. And today, people are ready for new ideas. People want something fresh. And Muslims today, we are very much an internet-based people. If someone sees that the right thing to behave like is, with this modern Andrew Tate type behavior where women are nothing but X, Y, Z, this affects the Muslims as well as it does everybody else. And you see it start to take effect on the ummah, and then attitudes change. And when the attitude change is different from the way of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you start... It's kind of like one of the scholars mentioned in maths, you have the initiation point. And in the beginning, it seems like a small deviation from the way of Islam. But over time, it gets wider and wider. And before you know it, you're very far away. One great example is the example of Barsisa. Barsisa, he was, an abid. He was a great worshipper of Allah. And he was suggested by Shaitan to do something what seemed to be good, after the story of Barsisa is a long one, but in essence, he was asked to look after a young lady while some young men went to fight. This was from Bani Israel, went to fight for Allah, and they asked him, Barsisa, to look after the young girl, and he said, no, I don't want the responsibility of a non-mahram lady. But they begged him. They said, you're the best one in the village, and everyone said that you are the most pious. So he gave in. Shaitan said, do it. It's a good thing looking after someone. And then Shaitan whispered to him, because he used to put the food outside the monastery and have the girl cross the road to come get the food that he would prepare for her, because he was looking after her. Shaitan said, you can't have the girl coming out on the street. People are going to see her and it could cause fitna. So he started to take the food across the road and leave it in front of the door. And after some time, Shaitan came to him and said, you should really speak to the young lady because she hasn't spoke to anyone. So he started shouting through the door, and slowly he got further away. We are at this point in time, brother. People are very weak in faith. You can meet someone who doesn't pray. He says he's Muslim. He doesn't pray at all. One little shake and their faith could be tested if we have prepared and understood and we've researched and looked at this topic in depth. We have a clear and concise response from Islam, and that's what we're doing. We're just doing our due diligence, and we're leaving the guidance up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why it's important. Maybe not for yourself, but for many people out there who are shaky in faith, they'll question this. People start thinking, is there really aliens? And then they hear that, oh, the aliens were actually the prophets who came from before. So it wasn't prophets, it was aliens. Oh, okay. And they just accept it. And then before you know it, a Dajjal is walking the earth and people are worshipping him, you know. So
Yeah, I
may Allah
totally
protect us
understand.
from that. Ameen.
Jazakallah khair for your answer. I totally understand because I was born and raised in Amsterdam. There's a lot of Muslims here, Moroccan Muslims and that kind of things, and Turkish people also. And since 3 years, I moved away like a small village here, and I was thinking about like because I just got married, and I was thinking about like if I grew up my children in a small village, there is not a lot of Muslims. I have to bring them back to Amsterdam because there's a lot of Muslims, because it will affect them in a positive way. If they meet a lot of Muslims, they will be stronger because I grew up in an environment with a lot of Muslims. So it's easier to have a strong faith. So I totally understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So
MashaAllah.
thank
May
you
Allah
for your
Jazakallah
answer.
khair.
Thank
protect
you.
you, give you strong iman, and let you visit the palaces and the gardens and the the rivers of Jannah, inshallah.
Inshallah,
Ameen.
barakallahu fiqh. I will come this weekend to London to visit London with my wife. So
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Have a good trip, man. May Allah bless you, bro.
thank you. Have a
Jazakallah
nice
khair.
day. Bye bye.
Thank you,
Assalamu
brother.
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Bye bye. Alaikum salam.
Inshallah.
So Farouk, yeah, man, it's good to get some of the brothers on as well, just to get their thoughts and stuff. Inshallah, it actually, brings up some interesting questions that we may be overlooking, that people may want answers to. So if anyone else wants to jump on, the StreamYard link is there for you guys. Inshallah, you guys can jump on. Nawaz, if you got any other questions, bro, you jump back on, and then we're gonna go back to
Yeah,
Farouk and carry on.
yeah. I actually went off, but I thought about another question that was in my mind, so I came back on. So I had this another thought. A couple of months back, I was watching a video of Stephen Greer. And I think you mentioned about him quite a few times in your talks. Stephen Greer, in one of the interviews, he said that something along those lines of something was found in Mars, but NASA was hiding it, and he talked with some sorry if I'm mistaken, NASA or some space agencies there. So one of the workers of NASA, he said to Stephen Greer that we don't want to disclose the thing that we saw in the on Mars, because that will affect the belief of religion in people, which will create chaos. That's what he said. I had to rewatch the clip because it was so unbelievable to me when I heard for the first time. So
Yeah.
can it be the case that they are not being really honest about what they're finding right now after 2017, because they
Yeah.
are fearing that it will create chaos, some sort of chaos, because people will stop believing in religion, and what will happen without God, godless
Yeah,
universe,
100%.
godless
100. That's
universe.
definitely one of the concerns, bro, amongst some people. So it's important to contextualize this. There are some people in high positions that believe that this will cause chaos, not only amongst religions, but within societies. But specifically when it comes to religion, you have to remember, most of these people, when they talk about religions, they are generally talking about Christianity. And they are superimposing what's true of Christianity to all other religions as well, right? So sure, there may be some issues, and they're trying to work their way through these issues now, and they have been over the past couple of decades. But to acknowledge other beings, aliens, stuff, it can cause some theological issues, for Christians. Now, they are also assuming this also applies to other religions, right? But that's not the case. So that's one of the things we want to highlight as well, that no, it doesn't cause any issues within Islam, because from an Islamic perspective, and again, we've mentioned this many times, we're not restricted to having to interpret this phenomenon as jinn, because there is enough in the Quran and the prophetic tradition to acknowledge other life forms, as Farouk was speaking about earlier, that Allah may have created and scattered throughout the heavens and the earth. Allah mentions this in the Quran. Now, exactly what Allah means about life or creatures that walk the earth, or planes that are scattered throughout the heavens and the earth, Allah knows best, right? But the point is that there is this possibility to interpret or acknowledge alien life. So it's not a problem in Islam. So we don't have a restriction. This is why when we make the jinn hypotheses, or we posit that this is most likely the jinn, is not because we're constrained or forced to do this. We're doing this because we're looking at the data and we're seeing that this is the best explanation, is the best inference. So no, it doesn't. It's not a problem for Islam. Now, for example, the Collins Elite is a group of Christian fundamentalists in the American government, strong Christians called the Collins Elite, and they have a lot of power. And they, if you read Elizondo's book as well, Elizondo was discouraged from pursuing this topic by these people, right? And they are Christians, and their view is don't mess with this stuff, don't engage in this stuff, it's demonic. Right, so you can see they don't want people to look into this because it's demonic and it may cause issues for religious people and their beliefs, etc. But again, from an Islamic perspective, it's not a problem, right? If it's jinn or if it's aliens, either way, it's not an issue Islamically. We're just putting out both possibilities for people to understand. And again, Farooq mentioned this again. There's an element of education here. It's important to educate the Muslims in regards to this. So whatever. Because this topic's only going to get bigger, let's be honest. Over the next year or 2 years, it's only going to get bigger. More evidence is going to come out. More people are going to acknowledge it. It's going to become more of a fact with a capital F. So it's important for Muslims to have a clarity as far as, what the options are. How do we interpret this phenomenon? Here are the arguments for it being jinn. Here are the possibilities of it being aliens. Now you make your decision, but the possibilities are there. That's the key thing. So overall, highlighting that it's not a problem for religion at all, or for Islam at all, in any way, shape, or form. Inshallah. Farooq, you want to touch upon it, bro?
May I? Can I ask you a question? What's your name, brother?
My name is Nawaj.
Sorry, Siraj.
Nawaj.
Nawaz.
Okay.
Nawaz.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Let me ask you this. Stephen Greer, he said what he said, and it wowed you. Now, I want to ask you this: do you think that the American government over the last sort of 20, 30 years has investigated Islam, particularly when they see us as enemies and they've been fighting against Muslims all across the Middle East for the best part of 30 years? Do you think that they would have given attention to studying and understanding Islam? Absolutely. Now, when they study and look into Islam, what methodology do you think they're going to do? Are they going to read Christian books, or are they going to go in depth and look at what our books actually say?
They'll go in depth. I think they will study the traditions with our sources, classical sources.
100%. You're 100% right. Why would they do that? Because they see us as an enemy and they need to understand our enemy. In their investigation, there is no doubt that they would have come across the works of the likes of Ibn Taymiyyah. And, the Quran and Sunnah is clear enough on the jinn, but Ibn Taymiyyah's works on the jinn is comprehensive, mashallah. When let's call them, the CIA or the intelligence community discover these things about Islam and what it says, and they have within their, understanding and within the technology they have monitoring the earth, they will see for sure that there's a correlation between what we describe as the jinn and what they've experienced. Now, this would almost certainly, Akhi, present a problem, because you are fighting against people who believe that the Quran and the Sunnah is correct. And then you have this anomalous, strange thing going on. And the best explanation that you found in all of your studies is Islam, which is your enemy. So this presents a great problem for them. One could argue, as much as you said that, Stephen Greer, they want to keep it quiet because it destroys religion. One could argue they want to keep it quiet because it strengthens religion, and in particular, just strengthens Islam. And that's the key thing here. When you listen to people like Stephen Greer and people like that, filter what they say with the Quran and Sunnah. If he said that they discovered something on Mars that indicates that there's, previous life form there, and that would, destroy Christianity or destroy religion in particular, not just Christianity, but generalizing it to all religion. The question becomes well, what proof have you got for that? This topic is rife with misinformation, disinformation, people inventing things. I'm not joking. I read the other day that quite an influential person online, he was just talking about Jesus, and he shared what you call as a meme, right? And this meme was, people are not ready to hear about Jesus being a Kundalini master or some nonsense like this, like some sort of, Hindu, super Hindu. I mean, absolute nonsense, yeah. But it had hundreds of people sharing it and liking it. Why? Because it's a new interpretation. People are desperate to make a new discovery and have something new and have something secret that makes them special. They desperately want to be prophets, but they're not. So they come up with new things instead. They reinterpret prophethood, or they say that something else was wrong, or they come up with ideas like, on Mars there was a secret base of humans who used to live there 20 billion years ago. Whatever, until there's proof and actuality behind it, we could take it with a pinch of salt. And that's why we filter everything through Quran and Sunnah. I've noticed in some of the discussions on the side there, people are talking about Dajjal and some interpretations of his name and things like that. These things neither mean nothing to us. At the end of the day, we were given milestones that when they occur, the Muslims at that time, it will strengthen their iman. And of that is information of a Dajjal and what precedes a Dajjal and the time preceding a Dajjal, and the darkness that would come like waves, where the people will feel like it can't possibly get worse than this, and it gets worse. So we have these if you like milestones to strengthen our iman, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to use this topic to strengthen our iman. What's cool, if you want to use that word, what's cool about this topic is that the more you learn about it, and the more you filter it through Quran and Sunnah, you really do realize that something strange is going on. And the best explanation that anyone can have, if you go through all of the annals of history that have ever existed, nothing comes close to explaining this perennial, this constant strangeness that's, been looming over mankind since people started writing about us. The best explanation we have for it is the jinn. There's nothing that comes close to it. Call it different names, call it fairies, goblins, whatever you want to call it. But this thing that's been, sort of like leeching next to mankind since we've been here, is the best explanation we have is the jinn, and nothing comes close. And I think, this is my own opinion, I could be wrong, but my opinion is that the American government and the people who really study this topic and have access to the data really know that we have the strongest opinion of it, and it would really harm them and harm their credibility to share that, actually, there's one particular group over who nailed it, and we don't want to strengthen their ideas because we're known as radical. The second that something like this comes out, the Muslims go, right, see, I don't want to pay, I don't want to pay XYZ anymore. I don't want to pay tax to you lot because we're up on the hook. So it could cause real damage, that's how they view it, I'm saying.
True. Just one last thing I want to mention is that what Brother Imran said. But isn't this the case that Christians are also slowly making peace with this? Then why Tucker Carlson talking about this publicly, openly? He's a Christian, right? He's a classical Christian. He's not. So
Who?
Isn't this the case that slowly but surely people
Tucker
will
Carlson.
make peace with it?
Oh.
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Reza Aslan, I think once he said years back, he said that if alien comes tomorrow on Earth, people will still believe in God. Religion will still go on. I think that's very interesting. That's what I strongly believe in, because it's fitra, right? I mean, we can't escape the fitra. We can't live without God, at least majority of the people. So isn't this the case that Christians are also making peace with it? I mean, as I'm seeing
so
that many
it
Christians-
depends on the Christians, bro. Like Tucker Carlson, for example, he is from appearances, he is a strong Christian, and he is interpreting this as demonic and malevolent entities or beings that are behind this UFO phenomenon. He's been quite blunt about this. He's been very clear as far as his position. And the Christians have been interpreting this as demons for a very long time, at least since the 50s, right? Some of our Muslim scholars also who have studied the jinn, have paid attention to the UFO phenomenon. Sheikh Umar al-Ashkar's book that Farouk introduced me to, The World of the Jinn and the Devils, I'm paraphrasing the title. He dedicates 4 pages in that book, and it's not a thick book. He dedicates 4 pages to the link between the jinn and the UFO phenomenon, right? So the Muslim scholars who have studied the jinn in depth, they have made these correlations, especially when they've studied the jinn in depth in relation to the world that we live in and occupy today. They have made that link very clearly. It's the Ibn Taymiyyah. Go back further. He didn't speak about UFOs, but what he spoke of the jinn and what the jinn were capable of doing and how they were interacting with people, is literally, I mean, you can replace the word jinn with UFOs in Ibn Taymiyyah's essays, and it will read like what's happening in the world today as far as the UFO phenomenon is concerned. Literally, I mean, that's how close it is. So it's very interesting. So I don't think it's a case of making peace with it. I think they are also in the process of interpreting this phenomenon, as the Muslims are as well. I think they have more issues theologically to deal with this topic. If it isn't jinn or demons as they call, or what they refer to as fallen angels, but from our perspective, it's not a problem at all. And even Greer and people like this, bro, you have to remember some of these guys are very new age, right? Greer, for example, he's a pro NHI guy, pro non-human intelligence. He actually holds events in the desert with people, and they conduct rituals. And I mean, they don't publicize much of this, but I came across a clip where he was playing Hindu chants and ceremonial music to evoke these entities and these beings, these quote-unquote UFOs in the desert. And what he's doing, again, is nothing new. I mean, the hippies in the 70s were doing this, right? They will be smoking their spliffs and going out into open areas and doing rituals and calling their space brothers, as they used to refer to them, right? And if you can look at this from people like, guys that were in charge of, or guys that are now recognized as the founding fathers of, for example, rocketry, Jack Parsons, he was doing something similar. Before he would do his launches, or when he wanted inspiration, he would go out into the desert, conduct rituals, and call upon these beings to inspire him. Go further back, look at some of the thinkers of modernity, right? Some of these guys that we consider to be the fathers of secularism and modernity, Sigmund Freud, Newton, others. Some of them were involved in alchemy, some were involved in occult practices, some were blatantly wanting to make contact with beings from a different plane, and doing rituals. So this goes back, you see the trend there. So yeah, these guys have always been involved in this stuff. And I think someone like Gray, yes, he's a professional, yes, he's done a lot of stuff with the government, but on the other side, he is into these rituals and stuff like this. So the point I guess I'm making is, we live in a time, bro, where most people, even if they claim to be Christian, they have their own new age version of Christianity, or some that may claim to be other religions, they have their own new age versions. And we don't want to fall into the same trap as Muslims. You don't want to be a new age Muslim where you're Muslim, but you're incorporating some of this other strange stuff into it, law of attraction, this, that, and the other, and eventually maybe even contacting these beings. Yeah, and just one last point. I think the bigger problem we're facing, some of the ways these people are interpreting these beings, what they're saying is that these beings, this non-human intelligence, these aliens, seeded human life. They are our creators. That's the claim some people are making now, right? And that's highly problematic if you think about it. That's a new form of shirk that's taking place. Now, if you take that concept, if that idea grows amongst people, these beings that are visiting us now, they are our creators. They seeded life on Earth. By the way, very similar to what Richard Dawkins mentions in his idea of panspermia, that aliens seeded life on Earth. That was just a more naturalistic, academic version of it. But most people on a popular level are running with this idea as well now within ufology. This is a problematic idea, and you can see how such an idea would open the doors to a being like Dajjal. That people are now willing to acknowledge beings from other places that created us. It's only one step short of Dajjal, coming and making the claim, I am God. So there's some very interesting stuff going on here that could be interpreted in many ways, and there's a lot of speculation involved. But the point of interest for us Muslims is to be aware of how things may be spun in the next couple of years, and not fall into these traps. Now, just to highlight 2 or 3 key areas or key topics which are becoming very popular and maybe would present a challenge to Muslims that are not educated or are not aware of the deen in depth. You've got the whole UFO phenomenon, which links in with the new age stuff, new age religions and ideologies. AI is another big one. Then you have idealism, which is becoming very popular, which is a counter to materialism. Many Muslims are finding that very interesting, but we'll probably touch upon that later because it's not that much of that big of a problem right now. So there's these few key things which are coming up. This idea of the simulation theory, that's another big one. You see, we live in a world where people, like Farouk said very eloquently and in a very powerful way, people are looking to play God. They want to make up their own truths. They want to come up with their own. They want to play the prophetic character. They want to be the prophet. New revelation, a new way of interpreting reality and religion and life and all of this stuff. So don't fall into this. We have the truth from Allah, which is preserved and it's perfect and it's there till the day of judgment. It's the final revelation. We don't need to go elsewhere. Inshallah. Sorry for taking too much time, but I just wanted to give that
materialism
context.
isn't working. Their materialism isn't working, right? So they have to come with different ideas, like simulation theory, as you said. It's fascinating
Yeah.
theory, fascinating one, but it's so anti-materialistic idea that we can believe something like that, but not God. It's extraordinary to
That
me.
shows the problem. Yeah.
Extraordinary. Like some of the
Anything
big
but God.
names are talking about simulation theory as well. Fascinating. Okay, so
I think
thank you
I
so much,
say
brother,
that
for
to
the
them
time.
about 20 times a week. Anything but God,
Sorry, Farooq?
I was saying, I think when I read a lot of what people say, they really push the boat in many ways just so they can say anything but Allah, the creator of the heavens and earth. I want to ask you a quick question again, brother, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Are you aware of artificial insemination? Are you there, brother?
No, I haven't heard of it.
It's essentially the deliberate introduction of a fertilized egg into the cervix of a woman. Okay. Now, this is something that people do to have children these days. If they're struggling to have a child, what they do is they go to a doctor who will, fertilize an egg in a lab and place that fertilized egg inside a woman, and she'll grow a child from it. Okay. There are some people who are suggesting that is what happened with Mary.
Yeah, interesting.
Right? This is their claim.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have this technology today, and they're saying that if this technology was owned by an advanced being that's had it for centuries, this could be why Mary had a child without ever laying with a man. This is going to produce, and if they bring some sort of evidence of ancient technology that they've kept hidden from us, that was found in a cave or whatever nonsense they come up with, most people are going to buy it. They're going to say, "Wow." And then if these things, these creatures, even if they look human, come and they say that, we've had this technology for many years, and in actual fact, we are the ones who took the genetics of an ape and created the human being from it, many people are going to accept it. And right now it sounds ridiculous, but because there's so many gaps in material atheism, these are things they're going to plug it with, especially if they come clean about the reality of a non-human intelligence on this planet. This will cause an issue. And can you imagine, right, in let's say 30, 40 years time, that our grandchildren are going to university and this is what they're teaching, rather than, just monkey evolving, but rather it was an altered ape, which Joe Rogan's pushed on his podcast. But this is something which, if you introduce a technologically advanced being next to humankind over the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 years, this opens the door to those type of questions being a reality. This is something which we have to preempt as Muslims and be aware of, so that we can explain our position and prove with reasonable doubt that this is nonsense what they're talking. Because Mary, peace and bliss be upon her, has nothing to do with modern technology and artificial insemination. This is one of the great miracles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's contained in the Quran, the book that's irrefutable. So these are the positions that we're taking. The reason I want to highlight this to you is because initially it sounds really ridiculous, but when you look at how they're framing it and the way they're speaking about it and the way people like Greer and others are really pushing this idea, they want to tear down our history and replace it with something else. It's almost like there's a shadow history that they're pretending to hide from us, when in actual reality, it's just finger puppets on the wall, as they love to use that guy. What's his name? Imran? Plato, that's it.
Plato's
they love
cave,
to use him. They will interpret everything through Plato. I hear, you've heard Jesse Michaels and people like that. They interpret everything through Plato. They ignore prophethood, the entirety of prophethood, because they want to tear it down. Prophethood, what it does, this story of mankind, of us versus the shaitan, this battle, that for our own souls on the day of judgment that's been going on since Adam alayhi salam until the last human being. this battle that's ongoing. They want to tear that down and replace it with something different. And this is the plan of the shaitan. And we, alhamdulillah, some of us are aware of this, and we're trying to bring it to attention. So hopefully that helped you a little bit there.
Thank
my
you so
brother.
much.
God bless you.
In the process of rejecting godly miracles, so they came up with their own miracles to explain these phenomena.
Yeah,
Extraordinary,
ancient
isn't it?
technology.
Absolutely.
Ridiculous.
Thank you,
isn't it?
brothers, for your time. I think
Thank you, brother.
it was nice talking to you guys. Hopefully next time, inshallah.
Inshallah, brother. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you. Take care, inshallah. So, Farouk, bro, we got probably another 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
It's been good, actually. I know we've gone off script and we've got
Yeah,
brothers
we
coming on. I think it's been beneficial. A lot of interesting discussions.
Yeah.
But I think somewhere we can sort of go with, or a direction we can go in, based on what we've discussed so far. I think it's, is maybe to highlight, give us a sort of, give me your summary of how you interpret what's happened this year, as far as sort of, mainstream events are concerned, and where you think it's going to go, and what things Muslims need to be aware of, I guess, in relation to this topic.
Sure. I will say this, Akhi. When we started doing these lives, it was almost like, shouting into an empty warehouse. There's nothing going on there. And over the years, subhanallah, this topic has grown. And as it's grown, so have the cracks in the wall of secrecy. This secrecy is old. And I'm not blaming the people who initially encountered what they did back in the 80s, 80 years ago, back in the 1920s, and the scientific discoveries that they made, and so on and so forth. I don't really necessarily blame them, but it's got out of hand. And we can see with the likes of the UAP task force, people like Jay Stratton, who's going to be having a book coming out next year, bro. Jay Stratton, for those of you who don't know, he headed up the UAP task force that was set up in the Pentagon to investigate this. And this investigation is separate from what people call the legacy program. What we see now is cracks in the wall of the legacy program because of people like Jay Stratton, people like Lou Elizondo, people like David Grush, and other whistleblowers who are, knocking at that wall, trying to bring the truth out to mankind. We've seen it go from foo-foo nonsense, tinfoil hat wearing lunatics, to credible, scientific, rigorous investigation from both, the private or public, should we say, as well as the intelligence community themselves. And now Congress is onto it. They're trying to get to the bottom of it, as they claim. And there's going to be more congressional hearings coming, I presume, over the next year or two. And I think what we're going to see is a change in the approach to the human story. And why I don't like the way they go with it is because they, like, the style of the shaitan is always the same, isn't it? Mix the truth with lies. When the shayateen, they go up to the cloud to listen into the discussions of the malaika, they pull from that one piece of truth and they mix with it many lies. And that's what we've got going on here. With the change in the attitude in journalism, particularly because of the works of people like Chris Sharp and Ross Coulthard, this is creating a safer place to talk about it, where you're not going to be ridiculed and mocked, and it's opening the forum to people having new ideas. And this is where the control is happening, Akhi. It's my opinion that the discussions on the UAP UFO topic are really going to shape where this ends up, because if you're experimenting with how the public are going to react to something strange like the admission of a non-human intelligence, you want to see where they're most comfortable, right? And where the human beings start feeling comfortable, oh, well, we're okay with it being that. We're okay with that. How do we interpret Jesus? How do we interpret Adam? And where these interpretations become comfortable for people, I think it's where they're going to say, yeah, that's it. Oh, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Because Dajjal, he wants to make his move. Dajjal, Iblis and his, people, they want to make their moves as secretly as possible. It's waswasa they come with. Shaitan, he don't come in front of your face and say worship other than Allah, right? He doesn't stand in front. He does it covertly and subvertly in your mind. He whispers, and if he can't get you to worship other than Allah, then he'll get you to do major sins. And if he can't get you to do major sins, he's going to get you to do minor sins. And anything for them is some sort of success. But what they want ultimately is mankind to worship other than Allah, and really and truly, they want to be worshipped as rebellious devils. And they'll do that in any way they can. And this whole topic here is the amalgamation and the nexus point between science, religion, and mythology. And this is what we're seeing here. And I'm right in the middle of it all is Iblis Nirajim, the rejected one. So I see that the future is a confusing one. And if we don't act now, especially as Muslims, and get up to date and up to speed with these new age philosophies and new age ideas pertaining to the UFO topic, because it is going to dominate, especially science. People are going to want to understand what new science is going to be developed from it, what new technologies have or will be developed from, these new understandings, and ultimately open the door to what is currently classified physics, to make that more mainstream and what that means to mankind. So I see it as a time of confusion coming up, but also it's also a great opportunity for dawah. And that's why, the more we can do these sort of things as brothers together, as well as all the people who are getting involved in the discussions, the more of these we can do, the better it is for us, because we need to have what's the right word? A player in the game. Because if we're not there and we're not having our voices heard, there's less chance of barakah. If, you got to do your bit and you leave the rest to Allah. So all we got to do is try and do our best and leave the rest to Allah. Allah will protect us if we are sincere and we follow the truth, inshallah ta'ala. Hopefully that's
absolutely, bro. And it is, I agree with you, bro. I think it's going to be confusing. It already is confusing, because there's so many different layers and levels this discussion is taking place on. You have the government, you have the academics, you have the UFO community, you have, the mainstream public, you have religion that's been brought into the discussion now. Cole Hart recently did one on Christianity, indirectly, albeit it's still on Christianity. So it's going to be interesting. And I think you're right. Look, if they run ontologically, there's going to be the ontological question of the origins of the human. With this phenomenon. So they are going to ask this question. The philosophers, just this question is going to be asked. What does this mean about the origin stories of mankind? And I think you nailed it on that. I think that is going to be a big one. And to interpret, or to give the interpretation that these beings are the ones that seeded us and created us, is one that would favor or more easily be accepted by science. It would go in line with many religions. They wouldn't mind interpreting religious texts to incorporate this understanding, and that idea in itself, bro, you can see how it paves the way to figures like Dajjal in the future. It's people are hungry, bro. People are desperate for spirituality. People are desperate to find a god, a god surrogate, basically a replacement. Anything but God. Anything but God, essentially,
God,
right?
I like that one.
It's true. They want a replacement, and if it's aliens, it's aliens. They won't mind. I'm sure. And this would be the previously secular atheist types that would acknowledge this and accept this. The old school naturalist atheists, they're going to be a minority, and they are a minority already. You've got some of these guys. I think Dawkins has briefly spoken about this. Krauss has briefly spoken about this. Michael Shermers, I think his name is, he's briefly spoken about this. Neil deGrasse Tyson has spoken about this. And currently they're all rejecting, this whole UFO thing. But they're not going to be able to reject it much longer, bro, because the evidence is just mounting as the days go by, right? So they're going to have to look at the next best thing they can adopt. And it's going to be, okay, panspermia. We were seeded on Earth. Yeah, we had this idea already. Okay, this works for us. And that's going to be problematic. Religions are going to be interpreted in different ways after this idea catches attention. So it's good that we're discussing this stuff and putting this stuff out there. And I think we should do this more regularly, man. It's been too much of a gap.
Yeah, it has been a long gap. And, you know, like you said, we did deviate a little bit from the discussion of world religions, but I think it's just having a discussion, getting people on, talking about it, making people aware of it is where the real benefit is, because we have something which nobody else has, and that is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in its original form, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke it to his angel Jibril, and what was revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and what was preserved thereafter. What we have is al-haq. What we have is the truth. And, you know, pondering on how all the different Anbiya of the past had miracles that came to their people that mattered to those people. For example, Musa alayhi salam came with things that were beyond magic. Isa alayhi salam came with things that are beyond healing, and Sulaiman alayhi salam came with a kingdom that was greater than anybody else's, thrones and things and amazing things that beat the throne of Sheba. And every prophet had their miracle that dealt with what was respected and you know, loved in their time. The Quran is no different, akhi. People today are desperate to understand sociology. And the Quran gives us the best social laws that you can possibly imagine to avoid all ills. We have a problem today where people are in great debt and are miserable and unhappy about their lives, and they don't want to be tax, slaves. Islam alleviates that from them, but they don't realize it. People hate criminals and crime, and they want strong punishments. Islam alleviates that from them. The Quran, with the authority of the one who created all this behind it, gives us alleviation from these illnesses and sicknesses we have. And not only that, these open and as you mentioned, this new age interpretation, Islam, the Quran, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ has already cleared this issue up and made it very, very concise for us that these interpretations are unnecessary. It may not be fun for a lot of people to hear that, but that's the beauty of the Quran, is that it's a miracle for all times, and it will help us in all these situations that are arising. And it is a little bit exciting from a dawah perspective, because we have such a strong position. Any other religion could be dashed against the wall, perhaps, with this new age interpretation, except for Islam, because the Quran exposes Iblis, it exposes the Jinn, and it exposes the relationship that Jinn have with men, and it exposes these secrets. And no other religion does that, and it holds account man and Jinn. It's the only book, as far as I'm aware, on the planet Earth that has been sent and has been made compulsory upon both man and Jinn to follow, and both will be held accountable. And those who disbelieve and go a different path other than what Allah has determined for them, both man and Jinn will end up in fire for that. And that is unique to the Quran, and this really strengthens our position. Alhamdulillah. I think we're about done now, bruv. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we're good for today, inshallah. We'll do one in a couple of weeks, I guess, another one.
Yeah. I'm getting old, you see.
No, you're not, bro. You look younger than ever, bro, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, I got a little trim up, man. Mashallah. I don't normally do it, but alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for letting me come on your channel, bro. We will, brothers and sisters. I don't know if you're up for it. I don't mind doing it on your channel again, but we could get the IREP one running now. I've become a little bit more organized. I've had a few setbacks. But
so to let everyone know, the IREP channel is Farouk's created this channel. He's going to be doing some regular videos, inshallah, soon. You'll see some stuff come up, so I'll definitely share it so you guys can pick up on there. And yeah, maybe you can transition, do some lives on that, or maybe we can do the lives and then share some clips from the lives on that channel. So yeah, definitely check that out as well. The IREP, what was the website? IREP.world. The website's still there as well, and there's a WhatsApp group you guys can join for anyone that's interested. But yeah, man, I think we're good for today, and we'll do one in a few weeks. Jazakallah khair, brothers and sisters, for listening. May Allah bless you guys.
May I plug something that's coming up, bro?
Yeah, bro.
So we are going to be uploading all the lives on the IREP channel that we've done with you, brother. We're also going to be doing some shorts and clips. So if you see them, brothers and sisters, share them and like them, whatever. Just to look, I'm not looking to benefit out of this financially. I just want to do it for the dawah. So if you want to help with the dawah, help the project, inshallah, it'd be wonderful. We're also going to be starting a series soon, inshallah ta'ala, and it's going to be dealing with this particular issue about the son of Adam and the real true history of mankind. This is something which the Ummah's crying out for. And we need something out there really solid to explain who we are and what the true battle is. Many people out there, they get excited and enthused about the idea of video games and completing the game and being the best at the video game. What we actually have in reality is a game going on here. It's us versus the shayateen. And if you want to do the best and get the best results, which is Jannatul Firdaus, and to enjoy the great bounties that Allah's created, you've got to go through the right methodology that Allah's given us to live by in this world. This is something that needs to be packaged correctly and delivered to the non-Muslims so that they can understand that what they seek in anime and cartoons and videos and entertainment, in reality, Islam offers them something much greater and valuable and real than they can ever imagine with their brains. It's just packaging it in the right way and bringing it to them. So that's some of the stuff that we want to do at IREP, is really, deal with these topics in a way that excites and brings people back to the true understanding of and the truth of Islam, the Quran and Sunnah and the words of Allah. Anyway, Jazakallah khair, brother, man. Man, I bless you, bro.
Jazakallah khair, bro. May Allah bless you guys. Take care, and we'll speak to you guys next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.